Good evening and welcome to Primetime News on MITV Plus. I am Layo Shubo for Lauren Shaw. Our top stories. Shatima to launch Africa's first university innovation pods at Unilag. Tinubu shifts Ogun trip, heads to Jos. "25-year-old woman intercepted with 220 rounds of ammunition." And on the foreign scene, UK to host a meeting of 35 countries on reopening the Strait of Hormuz. And in sports, Iraq celebrates qualification for FIFA World Cup 2026. Now the news in details. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has postponed his planned visit to Iperu, Ogun State, opted instead to travel to Jos to commiserate with victims of recent deadly attacks. This information was contained in a statement issued today by the Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Ononuga. It was noted that the President will later proceed to Lagos for the Good Friday observance before returning to Ogun State on April 4 to commission the Gateway International Cargo Airport and other key projects. He's also scheduled to inaugurate infrastructure projects in Lagos and conclude his four-state tour with a visit to Bayelsa State on April 10. Nigeria is set to take a major step in digital transformation as Vice President Kashim Shettima flags off Africa's first university innovation port at the University of Lagos, Unilag, on Tuesday, April 7. I wasn't sure. Are you sure you can do it well?
It's important to emphasize that this is not merely an infrastructure intervention, but a deliberate step towards building a coherent national innovation system, one that links talent, research, industry, and investment in a more purposeful manner. And through our partnership with the United Nations Development Programme, the initiative is being implemented with due regard to national priorities, technical rigor, international best practice, and long-term sustainability.
This is a defining shift. It signals that Nigeria is moving from pilot to platform, Nigeria is moving from ideas to systems, and Nigeria is moving from innovation to industrialization. And in doing so, Nigeria is positioning itself as a continental leader in building a knowledge-driven economy, one that His Excellency the Vice President has always underscored.
As Nigeria prepares for the 2027 general elections, security agencies are stepping up efforts to ensure a peaceful and violence-free process, particularly in the nation's capital. Our correspondent, Miriam Inahimion, reports.
The City Police Commissioner, Professor Ahmed Mohamed Salusi, is calling on residents of the nation's capital to shun electoral violence and work closely with security agencies to ensure a peaceful process. Speaking at the community engagement in Lugbe, Abuja on Wednesday, held as a part of activities marking the National Police Day, the commissioner emphasized that security is a collective responsibility that requires active participation from all citizens. We reaffirm the commitment of the FCT Police Command to protecting lives and property while urging parents and guardians to properly guide their children and steer them away from crime by promoting positive values.
Safe driving. Our expectation is that with what we have done so far, they will understand what it means to avoid electoral violence, to also avoid driving under the influence of substances or alcohol. With this, together we'll make the society a safer place, and we'll build a better electoral process, and that will be very credible and acceptable both nationally and internationally.
The police says they will continue to engage communities and strengthen security measures in the build-up to ensuring a safe and orderly electoral process in the Federal Capital Territory. Reporting from Abuja, Marian Inahimion, Mitv Plus News.
Director General of the World Trade Organization, WTO, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, has advised the federal government to invest in upgrading and maintenance of the country's airport facilities. Nigeria's aviation sector, which is a major economic driver, contributing approximately $1.7 billion to $2.5 billion to GDP, with over 31 airports and 13 scheduled domestic airlines, has over the years been plagued with challenges such as high operating costs, infrastructure gaps, and high jet fuel prices. Okonjo-Iweala gave the advice on Wednesday at the Aircraft Acquisition and Investment Summit held in Lagos. According to her, upgrading and maintaining existing infrastructure is not optional, but a prerequisite for a country as Nigeria seeking to move up the global value chain. She advised the federal government to call for private partnerships while also calling for a review of rising fuel, taxes, and airport charges, which, according to her, could lead to higher operating costs for airlines. Operatives of the Department of State Service (DSS) have arrested a 25-year-old woman, Nafisa Usman, in a possession of 220 rounds of ammunition concealed in Gari in Kano State. Nafisa, a native of Zango village in Kankara local government area of Katsina State, was intercepted at a motor park while taking delivery of the ammunition, a security source disclosed. The alleged criminal suspect who apprehended along bags of Gari and local where she concealed the ammunition and some naira notes. After an intelligence, Nafisa, who spoke with journalists at the State Command of the Department of State Service (DSS), confessed to have received the supply of the ammunition through a military officer from Lafia in Nasarawa State. Tension has erupted in Jos just hours after the Plateau State government eased the 48-hour curfew imposed following the deadly Sunday night attack in Agua Rukuba. Reports indicate that sporadic violence broke out in parts of the city with unconfirmed claims of fresh casualties. The situation has triggered panic among residents, forcing traders who had earlier resumed business activities to abandon their shops and flee to safety. Eyewitnesses describe scenes of confusion as people fled for cover amid fear of renewed attacks. Security presence is said to be increasing in affected areas, although authorities are yet to officially confirm the latest development. Meanwhile, operatives of the Rivers State Police Command have foiled a daring kidnapping attack in Port Harcourt, recovering 2 AK-47 rifles, ammunition, and arresting a suspected gang member, even as 6 others made a desperate escape into a nearby river. The breakthrough comes in the spirit of ongoing security fortification, championed by the Inspector General of Police, Olatunji Disu. Spokesperson of the River State Police Command, Grace Iringe Koko, who disclosed this in a statement, said the incident began in the early hours of March 20 when Fadi Nasir, 35, a resident of Orogboom Crescent, Woji Road in the government reserved area GRA, alerted the police after armed men stormed his home in an attempt to abduct him. According to police sources, the attackers attempted to abduct the victim and opened fire during the incident. Despite the intensity of the attack, the victim managed to escape, a development described by security officials as both fortunate and critical in triggering a swift police response. The Central Bank of Nigeria on Tuesday announced the successful conclusion of its 24-month banking sector recapitalization program, confirming that Nigerian investors provide 72.55% of the 4.65 trillion naira raised since the exercise launched in March 2024, a majority commitment that preceded an anchored participation from international markets. The program, the most significant capital raise in Nigerian banking history, saw 33 banks meet the revised minimum capital requirements set by the CBN. A further 4 institutions are resolving regulatory and judicial matters through established supervisory frameworks. All 37 licensed banks remain fully operational, with no disruption to customer access at any point during the 2-year exercise. Of the 4.65 trillion naira raised, 72.55% was sourced from domestic investors and 27.45% from international markets. And now on the foreign scene, the United Kingdom will convene talks with dozens of countries on reopening the Strait of Hormuz, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has announced, as the US-Israeli war on Iran has effectively shuttered the critical Gulf waterway. Speaking during a news conference on Wednesday, Starmer said the UK Foreign Minister Yvette Cooper would host a virtual meeting of 35 countries on Thursday to assess measures to reopen the strait after the fighting has stopped. The meeting will assess all viable diplomatic and political measures that we can take to restore freedom of navigation, guarantee the safety of trapped ships and seafarers, and resume the movement of vital commodities, the UK Prime Minister said. Countries around the world have raised serious concerns about Iran's effective closure of the strait, through which about 1/5 of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas (LNG) supplies transit, amid US-Israeli attacks on Iran and Iranian attacks on targets across the Middle East. The closure has sent global energy prices soaring and pushed nations to announce that they would release some of their strategic oil and gas reserves in an effort to lessen the crisis. Advocates challenging Trump's efforts to do away with so-called birthright citizenship, in which any infants born in the U.S., regardless of their parents' immigration status, can currently become U.S. citizens, hope to present what they see as an open and short case to a 9-justice panel of the country's top court. It will be brought before a U.S. Supreme Court dominated by a 6-3 conservative supermajority. The panel has recently handed Trump a handful of major defeats, but it has largely leaned into the president's favor on immigration. Wednesday's case before the Supreme Court represents the culmination of a month-long challenge to an executive order signed by Trump just hours after taking office on January 20, 2025. The order sought to effectively end birthright citizenship, long interpreted as established under the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, ratified in 1868, 3 years after slavery was officially outlawed in the United States. We take a quick break now. When we return, the news continues. Please stay with us.
Well, I have a feeling things are about to change.
The new season of the hit series Wura is coming to Africa Magic.
You don't say.
Here's everything you need to know about the woman behind the name to get ready.
This is well.
Wura is the ruthless CEO of Frontline Gold Mine.
We're going to build our paradise here on earth.
She'll do anything to maintain her power and perfect image. Lies, fraud, and of course, murder.
Let the dead state hit her.
Many try to take her down, but she always claws her way back to the top.
I have a plan.
That is, until she discovers that the last person she murdered is her own abandoned daughter. The once unbreakable Wura begins to fall apart, and her empire of gold crumbles around her. But she would rather die than have the world discover who she truly is. Catch Wura Season 4 on Africa Magic Showcase and available to all on Africa Magic Family.
Thank you so much for staying with us. It's still primetime news on MITV Plus. And to some more foreign stories, government supporters have taken to the streets in Iran to celebrate the anniversary of a referendum nearly half a century ago that solidified the Islamic Republic's hold on power, even as the United States and Israel continue their attacks on the country. President Masoud Pezeshkian and Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi were among officials who joined pro-establishment rallies on the streets of Tehran on Tuesday night to mark Islamic Republic Day, when the nascent theocratic system in 1979 announced that it had garnered 98.2% of the popular vote shortly after an Islamic revolution. Shortly after and in the early hours of Wednesday morning, Washington bombed the site of the former U.S. Embassy in Tehran in an apparent move tied to the symbolism of Islamic Republic Day. Footage from state media showed destruction and debris and smoke in the area, which is guarded by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC. And now to sports news. Fireworks, sporadic gunfire, and music filled the air across Baghdad as Iraq's national football team qualified for the FIFA World Cup for the first time in nearly 40 years. The Lions of Mesopotamia clinched their place for the first time since Mexico 1986 with a 2-0 victory over Bolivia on Tuesday night. Iraq became the 48th and final team to qualify. The team's achievement came during the U.S.-Israel war on Iran, which has pulled Iraq into the hostilities. At least 100 people have been killed in Iraq since the fighting began. Despite the war, supporters flooded Baghdad's main shopping areas at dawn to celebrate the team's triumph. The jubilant crowd, some moved to tears, brought traffic to a standstill as thousands waved Iraqi flags while standing on top of cars and trucks. Street tea vendors, who typically struggle to make ends meet, shouted tea for free as they too were caught up in the euphoria. Iraq's qualification for the FIFA World Cup 2026 has completed the lineup of 48 nations for the tournament hosted by Canada, Mexico, and the United States. Spanish police have launched an investigation into Islamophobic and xenophobic chants during a friendly against Egypt, which also drew sharp criticism from Spain's football officials and the government. At the RCDE Stadium near Barcelona, the home ground of La Liga club Espanyol, Spain supporters chanted, "Whoever doesn't jump is a Muslim," during the World Cup one-up march on Tuesday, which ended in a goalless draw. Justice Minister Felix Bolaños denounced the chants on social media platform X, reiterating the left-wing government's stance against the rise of the far right, which it associates with growing racism and xenophobia. It was the latest in a string of similar incidents to overshadow Spanish football in recent years, with Real Madrid's Brazilian attacker Vinicius Jr. in particular repeatedly racially abused. During the game on Tuesday night, the stadium displays messages on overhead screens reminding fans that taking part in acts of racism and xenophobia was a crime, yet the chant continued. And that is all we have for you on our primetime news tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Please follow us on our social media platforms at MITV+_NG across Facebook, Instagram, and X. You can also watch us live on YouTube at MITV+_NG. Please remember to click the like and subscribe button. I am Layo Shobo for Lauren Show. Good night.